a little backdrop here of how I've been stealth camping for the last 17 and a half months now, but who's counting? First 15 months, I was in an Acura sedan, an old Acura, 2003, so we're not looking like shiny off the lot. I stealth camped, you know, I only have 2.5 months now in my SUV, so I'll tell you the similarities and the differences, which aren't really many in stealth camping. I'm going to basically be speaking about the car and being a stealther in a car. The first 3 months when I went on the road, I was stationary within a 200-mile radius of Dallas-Fort Worth area. Yay, Texas. Any Texans out here? Woo! I was doing craft shows. That's my business, one of my businesses. So I was moving around from show to show. Like if there was a show on a Saturday and it was 50 miles from where I was going to be, I needed to move. But I'm going to tell you, when I first got started, I left Sticks and Bricks. I was renting a room. First night out, stuff still not quite organized on my front seat. Oh my gosh, what the heck am I going to do? And I pulled up alongside on a street in a neighborhood where I had one acquaintance friend. Well, that only lasted for about 2 nights, and then the friend was like, no, move on, you know. That's the short story. So I was like, I had done lots of research, top 10 places to stealth, because I'm a little nervous. I'm in the city. I'm in the, you know, I'm in a big city, mid-cities. So I was like, okay, Walmart, here I come. So I had already made my reflectix, and I used reflectix one side, I had felt on the other side, and every single night, I just put those babies in there as quickly as I could. And I know a lot of people are like, you know, you go in early and you set up and then you leave early in the morning. I necessarily, over the bigger scheme of things, now I'm going to talk more broadly, I didn't do that. I didn't hurry. I didn't get in there dark. My top 3 places within the city when I was stationary for 3 months was Walmart, a medical center on the outskirts, big medical center, people coming and going all night, and a street alongside a busy apartment complex. I kept jumping around there, like the rule of thumb is move, you know, have 3 or 4 places and move, just keep moving. I did that for the first 3 months because I'm still like antsy inside. I got to follow all the rules. Well, let's flash forward. This past October through December, I was back in Dallas-Fort Worth area doing shows. Well, I stretched that rule quite a bit. I'll let you, you know, I stayed in places more than 1 night, more than 2 nights, more than 3 nights. But my personality, I'm not saying that you shouldn't just keep moving, you know, that's not a good rule of thumb. My personality, I like to push the envelope. Push it, see how far you can push it. So with that, 4 different reasons, I have had 4 knocks over the past 17 months. Some people go 5 years, I've never had a knock. I was in Lake Havasu, knew I shouldn't have been there, small print, park closes at 9. Well, maybe I didn't see that small print the first time around. I'm not trying to make this hard for anybody. This is just about me. This is not us all coming in and breaking the rules. It wasn't like that at all. But I got a knock around 9 o'clock. You can't stay here. Another knock came at Walmart where he had to have all the people in one area because of those machines that come through. So that was an innocent knock. Another knock was in Washington when I was heading up after I left, I'll finish my other knock. I went up to Washington to be a camp host, and I was in a casino area for a week, and it was totally innocent, and then I got a knock. So, and I had heard you could stay at the casino, but because drugs and things are so bad, they're like, you know, no offense to you, and it still feels yucky when you get that, like you're doing something wrong. But that was an innocent, I had to move on. Now my 4th knock is the most interesting of all. I was at the medical centers, flashback to Dallas-Fort Worth area. I had been staying there, I'd been moving around to that area, and Lo and behold, like midnight, here comes the police. He's banging on my trunk, and he said he was a cop in Denver, and he had to do that for heroin addicts to get them to wake because they're like dead asleep. So he's like, "Didn't you hear me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm yelling. I was trying to get the lockdown. I ended up opening up the door. How crazy is that?" But I knew he was a policeman. And we had, my takeaway with all these knocks is we had a 15-minute conversation. I shared my business with him. My son's like, "Only you, Mom," 15 minutes talking to the policeman. But I responded rather than reacted. And at the end of our conversation, he said, "Linda, this is private property, but you can come back here anytime you like."
Close.
Right on, brother. Sean from the Yukon.
Where's the Yukon?
Up beside Alaska. North of British Columbia. I do a very little bit of stealth camping. I call it stealth safe parking overnight. I've only done it a few times, and I've picked places kind of unusual, not Walmart.
No.
I am driving a 2017 GMC Savannah box truck, so it looks like a moving van. I've pulled into mechanics' garages and pulled in and parked beside two other vehicles that he's going to work on in the morning, and I leave early. These are usually when I'm in transit. I went into a Walmart once to ask, and they said, "No, we don't own a parking lot. You can't park here." I said, "Okay, thank you very much." I left, and I went across the street. There was a building being under construction. I parked up next to the fence and went inside, went to sleep, and no issues. So those types of places I like to go if I need to have a stop where there is no rest stops to stop at, is find an industrial section, a mechanic's garage, or some construction. Again, like Lynn, I don't have any solar panels visible. I don't have vent fans, stickers, decals, anything. My truck's very basic, very plain, and that seems to help. I was talking to some police and some liaison officers with the police, and they say they rarely look at moving vans because it's obvious you're going from one point to another point, or you're delivering something. So they've made their assumptions that it's not a situation where they have to get involved. Yeah, that's it. I'm really short and sweet.
Give me that mic again. No.
Thank you. Hi guys, I'm Val Adam-Wit. I travel in a dark red Chevy Burgundy. Sean says it's burgundy. That's the 3 syllables. Burgundy Chevy, 98 Chevy conversion van. It does have stuff around it. I'm not as discreet as Linda. I have a big silver cargo box on top. My sister says looks like the super shuttle, the space shuttle. And I do have a couple solar panels over the driver passenger seats. I have been doing this in this van since for about 8 years now. And I travel mostly with this van across country as far as maybe Texas, Houston, through Colorado and Utah, and on up to as far as Washington. So the Pacific Northwest. I stealth camp in cities, urban, a lot, because I enjoy going to museums and checking out cities in the daytime, small towns and so on. Particularly, I've traveled also towing a travel trailer. So at times I'm 20 feet long, which is the van, and it's not white. And sometimes a bicycle is hanging off the back. So it's obvious that I'm doing things, even when I'm parked in a city. And sometimes I have a travel trailer, 23-foot Lance, so I'm sometimes 43 feet long. And it's possible to stealth camp with your trailer. Are there any folks towing trailers here? Any trailer folks? I'm gonna get over my reading glasses. Okay, any folks in Class A's here? Okay, so what I do with the, I've camped in the usual Walmart and so on, But what I tend to do is either I'm traveling to get up to the Pacific Northwest from this side of the country. So maybe I'm driving 3 days to get somewhere, and in that case, I'm stealth camping overnight here, and then overnight 5 hours down the road, and so on. So I'm going to be just in that one place for that one night. But there are times when I'm going to get to an area and stay there for 6 weeks, and I'm going to stealth camp the entire time. For me, doing research goes up. I'm just a researcher as far as knowing, I want to know where I'm going to end up parking. So I spend a lot of time on Google Maps. I know some folks told me the other day they use Waze, but I like Google Maps because I get to plan how many hours I'm driving that day, where I want to stop for the evening, where I want to be before dark. I don't like arriving after dark. And I want to arrive with enough time to explore that area a little bit. So I'll go to Google Maps. This is my process. I go to Google Maps. I also check the weather app to see how weather is going to be along the way from point A to point A, B, C, D, E. And I start planning it and doing on Google Maps directions from here to, let's say Medford, Oregon. From here to Medford, Oregon. And I'll decide that I'm going up through the 95, and then I'm going to cut through the Lassen Forest and the Shasta. However, I don't want to arrive in those forests when the deer are finding water to eat, or for breakfast, or dinner. So I'm timing everything so that I'm arriving at places at particular times of day. That's how detailed I get. I sometimes don't like to travel on a holiday weekend, and I'll travel on weekday mornings and so on, just to avoid the traffic. At any rate, I will use the Google map, and I will go as far as using the little yellow man in the bottom right-hand corner, and I will zoom in to see what the neighborhoods look like. I will drag the little yellow man, drop him on a street, look around, and even do a virtual drive by clicking the mouse and moving that man along the roads and the highways, looking around for apartment buildings. Linda mentioned apartment complexes. In a medium-sized town, I will find multifamily houses and small apartment buildings, and I'll park my van there because it looks like I belong. I will even park the travel trailer there in a neighborhood. There are 3 skills that I really think every stealth camper needs to have, especially if you're towing something, and even if you're not. I sharpen up my skills on parallel parking that trailer. So I can see a spot, maybe that's a New Yorker in me, when you see a spot, you have to grab it. So if I'm driving down a neighborhood and I spot on the other side of the traffic light, even in these small Oregonian towns, I spot a residential area and a spot that looks to me, that's a second skill, your depth of perception and estimating your distance and knowing the size of your vehicle, then I can identify a spot, and without having my co-pilot, my passenger, hop out and stand in the way to block the spot, I can get down the street, stop, check my mirrors, jam that thing into reverse, jackknife it, put the ass on my trailer where it needs to be. Am I allowed to say that? This is PG. Put my butt where it needs to be and line up with the curb and drop into your spot. That's a very valuable skill when you're out driving like this. That's something you want to just tighten up your skills on, moving your trailer around, moving your rig around, knowing the size of your rig. If you're in the trailer, with a trailer, I suggest my tow vehicle is ready to sleep in and to camp in by itself. So when I boondock with that trailer, I do not get out and walk around and sleep in the trailer. You stay in your tow vehicle, and the same principle holds, lights out, no movie watching, whatever. So I stay in urban areas. I get there early, I get out, I go for dinner, I go for drinks, I go all around, do what I'm doing, and come back home because I'm parked on 5th and Main or whatever, you know? And nobody cares, because you could be visiting someone with that trailer. You could be visiting somebody with that burgundy van, right? And I look like I'm traveling if I wear one of my 3 clean plaid lumberjack shirts. When in Oregon, look like an Oregonian, right? and your keen sandals. Don't forget to dress the part. Even if a Jamaican accent comes out your mouth. All right. The third skill that I like to have is talk to people. When you park in front of someone's business or somewhere close by, you get out and walk around, say hi, get the lay of the land from them. People, like Linda talked to that cop, people have a lot of information to give you that can help you. I met another person who may or may not be here now, I think she's volunteering, in Southern Oregon this summer. And I said, come, she wasn't used to boondocking because she's been doing the BLM thing, and it's her first year, but I said, come, we're gonna boondock in Oregon. And I think she was up in La Paul at first, and she didn't have solar on yet, so she was nervous. But I said, let's boondock, and I'll show you where to park. So I suss out about 5 places, so that if I'm staying in that area for 6 weeks, I have 5 places to park. And then when I get there, even though I've looked it up on the map, when I get there early, then I drive around and make sure that the street signs I thought I saw on Google Map when I zoomed in actually say what I thought they said, and that it's legal to park there. And then what we did when she arrived in town was we got her parked and then in a neighborhood, and then we went out walking to look at other street signs for other places to park. After that, we walked down to the police station to ask questions about where is it legal to park? Where else? She didn't want to go in. She sent me in to face all the cameras, all the recording devices. And I went in anyway, and they told me that the police don't handle parking and parking tickets in that town. What? It's a parking meter made system person, and they're in the next shopping center over. So we went over, we talked to this woman in there. She pulls out this map and shows us all these areas where we can park for 3 days at a time and not be bothered. And we told her, as Linda said, you have to have a story. So we told her that we were passing through, we were traveling from Utah to the coast and up to Tillamook, Oregon, and that we were just here for their 4th of July celebrations. And it's a tourist town, so they welcomed us and told us where to park, have a good time, and gave us all kinds of information. So don't be afraid to ask the powers that be where you can be, because once they've seen you and you've said hi, then, like Linda said, they welcome you.